Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to quickly check out Dune Spice Wars. So while I have 14 hours on record, I would not consider myself to be an expert at this game. There's a lot of little things about Dune Spice Wars that sets it apart from other RTS games that I've played, and I wanted to sort of share my experiences and the things I wish I had known as I was starting to learn this game. Like, there are certain things that I just learned last night while playing this that I wish I had known right from the beginning. Because, like I said, this game is fairly deep, and if you miss one or two key things, it might set your whole game back. So the following is a compilation of things I wish I had known prior to starting this game. First of all, factions. Unlike other real-time strategy games where the factions might be sort of carbon copies of each other, aside from a few small differences, the factions in this game play incredibly differently. Like, your strategies will be very different. House Atreides, and by the way, I am not a Dune person. I have not read the books. I couldn't stand watching the original movie. I got to the part where Captain Picard, Patrick Stewart, was fighting the young guy and the energy shields came on, and I'm like, oh my god, I just couldn't. Anyway, so I'm going to be mispronouncing Dune stuff on a regular basis. Just bear with me. But House Atreides, I think, is how you pronounce it. For example, very peaceful in the way it plays. It can annex villages, like neutral villages, peacefully. Whereas typically you would send units over to a neutral place and liberate it with soldiers or whatnot. But you can be peaceful with House Atreides, whereas House Harkonnen is more of like, you're a jerk. So, like, each one plays differently. Smugglers, the Fremen, the Vernius, or House Ix is like the DLC, which I got a key for, which is great. So, like, they all do something different. So my first bit of advice is, I know you may be tempted to randomly pick one every time you play and see how they play, but I highly recommend you pick one and you stick with it for a while. Figure its ins and outs out. That's grammatically correct, I think. So yeah, just stick with one faction, learn how it plays, and then when you feel like you've mastered it, then move on to a new faction. Because like I said, you're going to be, if you jump around, you're going to be like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I barely know how this one played. Now this one plays completely different. Yeah, so pick one faction, stick with it. It's helping me out immensely. The first thing I want to talk about is the gold and purple bar on the upper left part of the screen. Here you'll be able to control how much spice you're currently selling for something called Solari. And you'll be able to adjust this purple bar up and down as such. Now, the price that you'll get for the spice will change. For example, under this CHOAM plus 99 here, it says one spice is equal to 1.8 Solari. And that stands to reason, because if you take the 55 spice that I'm currently producing and multiply it by 1.8, you end up with 99, which is what that plus 99 right here is. If you hover over this Solari and look under spice sold, it also says plus 99. So it essentially takes how much you're selling times whatever this conversion rate is, and that's how much converts into Solari. And all of this gold here means that I am selling all of my spice. Okay, just for this example purpose. Typically, I leave it about 40-60 or 30-70. I need to stockpile spice. Reason being, you have to pay a tax. There's something called an imperial tax that you have to pay. And right now, this says negative 357. So I am obligated to pay 357 spice as a tax, meaning I need to stockpile at least that much. Because if I don't, I start losing my standing. So all in all, what you want to do is take a look at this conversion rate, and you'll see it go up and down as you play. My advice is stockpile when the conversion rate is bad due to various reasons, and then like sell it whenever, like sell more of it whenever the exchange rate is fairly good. Now, as far as like when it's good and when it's bad, that's a decision you'll have to make. Like, just keep an eye on it, see how it's going up and down throughout your play, and if possible, make that decision. Or if you just want to play a bit more casually, I keep it on like a 40 Solari, 60 storage of spice split, something like this. That way I'm always guaranteed to have spice in reserve, because there's so much going on in this game that sometimes I lose track of this. So keeping like a 40-60 is typically a good idea. The other time I change is when I start losing on Solari, like if I'm in the negative income when it comes to Solari, and I need to make sure I don't go under. I'll sell more spice than I probably should until I build enough structures in the environment to bring this back up. But long story short, there's a slider in the upper left-hand corner, and you can control how much spice you're selling here by adjusting it as appropriate. Speaking of spice, there are harvesters that you'll be able to make in this game in order to collect said spice. I'm not going to get into too much detail on that, but I do want to go over something important. Sandworms will, from time to time, threaten these harvesters because you're disrupting the land. But there are ways around that. What you want to do is create an ornithopter. It's like a little helicopter that you get at the beginning of the game. You can create more of them. Typically, they're used for scouting. You can put their auto recon on and they'll fly around and do their thing. But what I like to do is I like to make an extra one and then right click on the harvester and then put it into safe mode. And what this does is this will recall the harvester at the first sign of a sandworm. It cannot be eaten by sandworms barring sabotage. So this way I don't have to worry too much about harvester management, okay? By assigning that copter to the harvester, and I can just pretty much allow the spice to roll in without worrying too much about whether or not they're going to get eaten. Okay. Another thing you may want to consider is there's a little add crew button on the top right of this harvester window. For 40 manpower or whatever it is for the faction that you're playing, you can increase your spice production by adding a crew. And that's, I think, something that you could do right in the beginning of the game. Manpower, I typically am maxed out on manpower, at least playing as this particular house, the House Atreides, because military, I mean, with this house or this faction, you're going to be peacefully annexing neutral locations without using your military. So it doesn't hurt to just go ahead and just add crew members to your harvesters to get that extra spice production. Another quick tip for you, those ornithopters, whatever they're called, I'm going to be butchering that word, those little helicopter orny thingies. Have them auto scout right from the beginning. And again, assigning one to your harvester so that it's safe. But have them explore as quickly as possible to find these points of interest. You're going to be finding these little question marks all over your map. And these ornithopter things are going to be exploring these points of interest. And it'll come up with something like this, harvester wreck. So you can do typically one of two things. You can, like, use your agents in order to do the one thing, or send like a military unit over to it to do the other thing. It all depends on what you have available and what you need. So my advice to you, as far as this tip is concerned, you're going to want to explore as quickly as possible and as fast as possible and rush these POIs, points of interest, before your opponent gets to them. Now, because spice is so important in this game, spice is how you pay your tax, you should always build toward spice deposits. I know that sounds kind of obvious, but that's at least what I've been doing. Typically, there's a spice deposit near you right from the beginning of the game, but I always try and find that second spice deposit as soon as I capture the first one. And then I start capturing territory and working my way over to it. So, for example, I started here at this location. I saw that there was one via scouting down here, so this is the first refinery that I built in this territory. And then as I was scouting, I found one over here. So I just sort of slowly branched out this way to capture the second territory. Having two refineries, I think, is good. If you can find a third, great. But typically in these small maps, you're going to find two. using the tips I kind of highlighted before, make sure that they're in space mode, or safe mode rather, and also assign crew members to those harvesters in order to maximize their output. Let's talk a little bit about village quirks. I didn't know this until last night because I wasn't paying attention. There's a lot of little things. So if you click on a village that you have under your control, a window pops up on the bottom left. And right under the name of the location, you'll see the words Village Quirks. And if you go to the right, there's some icons there. The first one might say something like this: versatile, plus 20% resource production when the village has at least one building of each type. So because of that, I've built 3 economic buildings, 1 blue statecraft building, I think it is, and 1 red military. So I try to get 1 of each type in there to accommodate that quirk. This other one says plus 30% agent recruitment speed. And each location is going to have different quirks. So you have to pay attention to each one to see what they prefer. And you can even build structures like this one here, this investment office. This will increase the effect of village quirks by, say, 1 more time. So you can actually double the amount of effect that a quirk has by building a particular building. But this one says strong-willed village quirk, plus 1 manpower production when the village has at least 1 building of each type. I've got 3 economic ones, 1 blue, and I'm saving up a resource called Plascrete, I think it is, in order to unlock my 5th build slot so I can get a military or a red building in there. And then the other perk or quirk is plus 3 Solari production per statecraft or blue building. And had I probably paid attention, I would have done like 1 gold economic building, 3 blue, and 1 red. But, like I said, I'm still relatively new to the game. Long story short, each village has quirks, and if you pay attention to them, you might be able to get a little bit more out of each location and do better economically, if you satisfy them. Here's another word I'm going to butcher. Landsraad. Landsraad. Land whatever. These are the people that you don't want to piss off, because if you do, you're going to get negative debuffs. So you're going to be gaining this Landsraad. I'm just going to call it land standing. You're going to be gaining and losing it throughout the game. And you want to try and keep this like medium high, very high, because you're going to get better bonuses. If it gets low or that pariah, they're going to hate you, and you actually start, getting debuffs. So you want to keep these people happy. And to do that, there are a number of different ways to do it. Paying your taxes, that's a slow way to increase that. But you can also, during the voting process, get bonuses and debuffs. Look for these little icons, like these are the 3 different voting columns that you'll be able to vote on using your votes and stuff. But look for these little icons. If you hover over it, it might say something like, "Dear to the House's Minor, if this resolution passes, all factions who have voted for it will be granted 10 land standing." So if you see something like that, then by all means vote toward it, and if it does pass, then you'll gain some standing that way. Keep an eye out for certain things like this. All factions suffer, lose 30 land standing. So vote against stuff like that, obviously. So when you're voting for something in particular, keep an eye out for little icons like this that might gain or lose you standing. Now, another way to increase it, there is a research tree with 4 different branches, and one of them in the blue area typically does it. This one says a treaty's sympathizers, plus 5 land standing per land information level on council opening, plus 2 influence production. So typically there are ways to increase your standing through the research tree as well. As you take over and control more territory, you're going to be finding it more and more difficult to defend your territory from attacks. Now, there are ways to combat that. You could build missile batteries, for example, and key points to help defend. But another thing that you may want to consider doing is something called airfields. And while your militia, which is, by the way, maintenance free, you can build militia at villages, and at a small cost, you can build these militia. They are weaker than your normal units, but they also have no maintenance cost associated with them. But like I said, they're not going to stand up to strong attacks. So you still may have to bring your main force, your regular troops, over to help them out. I feel like your militia is just there to slow down attackers, to give your main force enough time to get there to help out. There's something called airfields that you can construct. And if you click on a unit, on the bottom left, there's a little shuttle ability. Assuming there's an airfield in range, you can click on this shuttle button. At the cost of Solari, you can shuttle them from one point to another. Again, they have to be inside the airfield's radius. This one down here, this unit, is outside the radius, so I can't use this airfield ability. But if you put airfields in different parts of your territory, you'll be able to get them from one point to another, at least from like one side to the other side, a lot more quickly than you would if you had just let them run all the way there. So if you bring your military units outside of your territory, they start losing something called supply. It's a little yellow bar that's situated right under the health. You'll see it go down, but you can also see the actual number if you click on them, and on the bottom left, there's a little supply tooltip that you can hover over, and if you let time play out, you'll see that number drop. And that's how much supply they have left until, well, they start losing health and die. And what affects how much supply a unit has is determined by how much water you're currently producing. There's a little water icon on the top of your screen. It's next to your plascrete and your manpower and your Solari, but there's a water droplet symbol. If you hover over that, it'll bring up a window that tells you how much water you're currently producing, and the more water you have, the more supply your units get, and that also determines how quickly your units will replenish. So, long story short, to keep your units outside of your territory for longer, you want to keep your water reserves high. Just go crazy with the water, assuming that you can afford to. There's also something called the CHOAM Market, and this is where you can go to buy shares of this CHOAM, and there's two purposes for this. Oh, there's three, really. One of which is an economic victory, assuming that you have that enabled. Another thing that you may want to do with it is continue to buy low and just hold on to them for various bonuses. For example, if you own 10% of the CHOAM shares, then you get a bonus. This one, for example, says, allows the training of mercenaries +2 influence production. And if you own 30%, it says CHOAM board member +15% military unit power +200 max influence. So by owning more shares of this CHOAM, you can actually get new bonuses. And the third reason why you may want to invest in this is to simply buy low, sell high. That way you can get more Solari. I typically don't have enough time when I'm worrying about other things to focus on this, but if you're one of those people that like to multitask and follow a market while you're playing an RTS game, buy low, sell high, and rake in on that extra Solari. So let's talk about your headquarters and their districts and the buildings that you can put in those districts. So once you reach enough of something called Hegemony, Hegemony is like assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly, it's like a victory point score, and you earn it over time, and it is a victory point goal, assuming you've got that enabled. But I typically don't. I usually have domination enabled, just so I can play around with stuff more. But anyway, once you reach a certain Hegemony goal, you unlock the ability to put buildings into your headquarters. And your headquarters are divided into districts. You'll see, like, here's a district of 1 there. Here's a district of 2 here. There's a district of 3 here. A district of 2, a district of 1, a district of 1. And what this represents are set bonuses that you can get for completing these districts. So, for example, I've got 2 blue structures here that I placed. Okay, this completes this district of 2 buildings. If you go off to the right-hand side, it actually tells you what the reward is for having that bonus, that set bonus. In this case, +3 influence production, +5 intel production, complete a district with 2 blue statecraft buildings to gain 1 stack of this bonus. Now, had I put 2 yellow here, I would have gotten this instead, which is 30 Solari production. Complete a district with 2 economy buildings to gain 1 stack of this bonus. And if you hover over an empty district, it'll tell you what that set bonus is without having to go off to the right-hand side here. So for example, this is a district of 2. So this is telling me if I put 2 yellow structures in this district, I'll get 30 Solari production. And if I come over here, it is 30 Solari production for 2 economic buildings. If I come back here to the 2 set again and I look at the red master armorers, +1 armor to military units. If I come over here, this is the bonus for 2 military buildings, +1 armor to military units. So you don't have to keep coming over here to the right to look at the bonuses. You can just hover over an empty one to see what the bonus would be if you supplied that district with all of those colored building types. So long story short, when you unlock the ability to put buildings into districts, look at these different set bonuses to see what would sort of benefit you most and then shoot for them. Let's talk about Sietches, Sietch, Sietch. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not familiar with the lore. I don't know who these people are or if they're even in the movie. I don't know. But these are like hidden camps that will reveal themselves as you do in-game things. For example, a point of interest reward might be reveal one of these Sietches. And I see them as like the Tusken Raiders from Star Wars, like the Sand People, because like they're these just raiders that will go out and wreck your day if they're pissed off at you or whatever. So once you find them, you can actually ally yourself with them. If you look on the bottom left of the screen, once you click on them, assuming you reveal them in the first place, there's a trade button. In this case, it says trade 4 water for 1 manpower production. And as you continue trading, your influence or your relationship with that level will go up. Once you reach 100, you can assign an agent here as an emissary to ally with the siege and benefit from its alliance bonus. And there's a little bonus down here that you get if you do that. So long story short, there are these hidden camps in the environment that you can reveal, and you will get attacked by these guys sometimes, so you got to be careful. But once you do find them, you can trade with them and ally with them, well, at the very least to stop them from sending units your way and messing up your day. But best case scenario, you're able to trade with them and get their ally bonus. When it comes time to actually vote, you've got 2 resources available to you. You have votes and you have influence. Votes will automatically replenish every time. So if you have 100 votes and you use all 100 on a particular session, and then the next session rolls around, you'll still have 100 votes again available. You don't lose votes. It's just a resource that you have to spend right now to do things, but you get that back. Influence, on the other hand, is a resource that you gain over time. You can use it to add to your votes. And the way that looks, let's say that I wanted to pass this particular rule right down here, this law. I can spend 100 freely, and you can see it says 100 votes. Now, if I want to start spending influence, I can keep going, and you'll see that that number is turning blue, which means I'm starting to dip into my influence reserve or stockpile in order to continue voting on this. So if you don't want to spend influence, then stick to your vote amount. But if you need that extra push to vote on something in particular, then you can start dipping into your influence reserves. But again, votes are not consumed, but influence is. Earlier in the video, I talked about Hegemony being a victory goal that you could try to complete to win, assuming you have it enabled. But in addition to that, Hegemony can also earn you some really cool things. Like in Northgard, as you increase your, I think it's honor, I could be wrong, but you get bonuses for doing that. In this game, it's similar. Shiro Games did the same thing in this, in the sense that as you increase your hegemony, you get different bonuses. And you can actually see that each house has different bonuses. So House Atreides or Atreides, whatever, faction bonuses are listed here, but at 5k hegemony, you get this. At 10k hegemony, you get this. And then House Vernius, same thing. They have faction bonuses here, but there's also 5k and 10k hegemony bonuses that they could get as well. So if you can, observe these hegemony bonuses, and that way you can kind of plan ahead and see what kind of factions you might enjoy playing with. Because, you know, as I said, these factions are all different and they play different ways. So seeing what these bonuses are ahead of time, or at least seeing them once in action, will help you determine whether or not it's a faction you'd like to continue playing in the future. As you're playing, you're going to come across a region that looks like it's full of ice and there's a gigantic crater in the middle. This is called the Polar Sink. There is a special structure that you'll be able to construct that's only available here once you have access to this region. So capture, or whatever the case is, annex the village or capture the village in this region, and then construct the building. It's called the water extractor. In this case, plus 25 water gathers ice, melts it, and filters it to produce clean water in large quantities. So if you're able to find this region and you're able to get to it and capture or annex the village, construct this right away if you can, because that's a lot of water and that'll help you out from a military standpoint, logistics standpoint. And also make sure that you're constructing maybe a missile battery, or bring some military units over here to defend it, because there's only one location like this and it's pretty popular because it's going to help. A lot of water. I'm just saying, water is a very important resource in this game. So if you get this location, make sure that you're able to hold it through military means. The last thing I want to touch on is the length of a typical match. Unlike other real-time strategy games that I've played, you know, you could typically bust out a StarCraft or a Warcraft match in half an hour, depending on how quickly you get rushed or you're able to defeat your opponent, whatever. I typically wouldn't spend 3 hours on one game. Not the case with Dune Spice Wars. I just have to warn you. If you're going to play this game, make sure you've got plenty of time ahead of you in order to devote to these matches. Yes, you can save it. You can come back to it the next day. But if you're forgetful like me, you have no idea what's going on when you come back to it. So I just wanted to again, this is more of like a FYI. Matches in this real-time strategy game take a lot longer than normal. If you've played Northgard, you kind of know what I'm talking about. And there you have it, a quick compilation for you of the things I wish I knew prior to starting to learn to play this game. Now keep in mind, I am no expert and I'm still learning. So if you've played this at length and have some extra tips, feel free to leave them in the comments below. This is Vince, thanks for watching. I'll catch y'all next time. Take care.